which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening and welcome to the Bryan Board of Public Affairs meeting for March 3rd, 2015. The first thing on our agenda is to approve the minutes of the February 17th meeting.
I read the minutes and found nothing in error, so I move that we approve the minutes.
Second?
Karen?
Yes.
Dick?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Okay, next is a hearing of public concerns. Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. Number 3, a resolution to enter into contract for the 2015 water main and sanitary sewer extension on Brunacarty Way from North Main Street to the city limits project.
Okay, this would be resolution number 6, 2015. It's a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Bryan Excavating LLC for the project known as 2015 Water Main and Sanitary Sewer Extension on Brunacarty Way from North Main Street to the city limits. As you know, when the city purchased that property to develop the industrial park, we had put in the budget for this year the dollars to do the water line extension. We also chose at that time to partner up with the city for the sewer and water to be put in together. So there were four bidders that responded to the bid proposals that went out, and those went out through Brian Whelan's group uptown. The bids were opened on 2/18 or February 18th, and Bryan Excavating LLC came in as the lowest bidder with a total project cost of $346,933. BMU's portion of that is $173,863. So, like I said, our budgeted amount for this year was $300,000 to do that project, so we're considerably under budget. Last night at the council meeting, council approved to their side of this to go ahead and hire Bryan Excavating LLC. So this is sort of just following up to show support that we're, two groups working together on that.
I'm not familiar with Bryan Excavating.
It is a new/old company. It was a company that did business in town. New family members decided to start their own business, and that's who they are. I don't want to throw names out,
Okay.
but it's a local company.
Any other questions or comments?
I so move. I'll second.
Al?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Dick?
Yes.
Okay, number 4 then is a resolution to amend and approve the 2015 City of Bryan Employee Handbook.
Okay, this would be resolution number 7, 2015. It's a resolution amending and approving the City of Bryan Employee 2015 Handbook. The handbook update covers those employees that are not under the IBEW contractual bargaining agreement. So it's all of us other employees. Jackie and I did provide input and work with Rhonda and the mayor on the proposals that we're going back and forth between ourselves. So this has been in the process for several months, back and forth, quite a bit actually. I know council approved the handbook amendment last night at their March meeting. I would recommend that we follow suit. There's been a lot of work involved in this. It's very fair, so that would be my recommendation to you guys.
I'll entertain a motion.
So moved. I'll second.
Al? Al?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Dick?
Yes.
Okay, number 5, a resolution to provide an effective means for protecting the public water system from contamination and declaring an emergency.
Okay, this will be resolution number 8, 2015. It's a resolution to provide an effective means for protecting the public water system from contamination due to backflow of contaminants through the water service connection into the public water system and declaring an emergency. Give you a little history on this. Derek Schultz and Norm have been working on this for quite a while, actually. Derek brought this to my attention, it's probably been 6 months ago, and we have, or had at that time, an ordinance in place, which was 10-1989, I believe, that sort of laid out the rules for backflow testing and what's required of the customers. And it's mirrored off of American Water Works Association, what their recommendation is. So there's a lot of good background on that. What we lacked was the ability to have some teeth in it to really encourage some of those customers who really didn't feel the need to have their backflow potentially tested. And we were responsible for that as a utility under the EPA's eyes. So we sat down as a group and decided, you know what, let's look at updating this to meet our needs for today, get a draft put together, bring it to Rhonda's attention, let Rhonda go through it to make sure it still fits what she's comfortable with. In fact, Rhonda had to go back and pull out the old resolution because it was prior to all of us. And so actually Derek and Rhonda and Norm really worked through this process. In the past, the ordinance was what was in place, and the board we didn't have nothing in place where the board recognized that. So Rhonda and Derek and everyone felt it's prudent that council still rescinded the 10-1989 and passed a new one, as well as we want to recognize as a board that there is a need for this type of protection system. It has to have some kind of teeth in the policy so that we can police this to encourage these people that have backflow devices in their facility to have them tested yearly. So what's in front of you is that. The teeth that we have in here mirrors everything else that the city has when it comes to assess fees. If you don't do A, there's this fee here, and if you don't do it, it goes to B and then down to C. It gives a little bit of teeth for Norm to make those moves. So we are passing it as an emergency because we do have a couple that we really need to work with and encourage and get them to believe in what we're trying to do. And it also helps us line up local contractors who do this type of testing. There's a lot of our plumbing and heating agents in town have this ability to do this testing. So we got to get everybody on board to understand this is what the city of Bryan's policy today is on this. So we really, when we send these letters out, contractor A and B and C needs to understand they need to get this scheduled in for these people. Because, those entities that have the backflow device are the ones on the hook.
How will the yearly testing work? Is that something that our guys will do once a year?
Well, no, sir.
Or
No, it's got to be done by a certified tester.
a certified test?
At their expense.
I see.
And there's plenty of them. There's a site on the website that lists 10 or 12 certified testers in the area.
Yeah. You mentioned some plumbers.
There are agents that do the testing and submit that test report back to Norm and your crew.
Oh, I see.
correct?
Right.
I think the biggest inconvenience that we run into is those customers have to have am I correct me if I'm wrong here, Norm? The water has to be turned off for them to do this test, correct? Or how does that work? I guess.
Interrupted intermittently, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's maybe 20 minutes or so by the time the guy's done. Then if it needs repaired, of course, it's going to have to be scheduled to repair it.
And
We've been doing it all along, okay? Standards have changed. The old ordinance was about 23 pages long. It listed specific devices that were approved, and they no longer list specific devices. Those are ANSI standards now. And we updated or upgraded the penalty phase of it, and also included some procedural language in there. So there's a few businesses, when they change hands, you have trouble getting the new ones on board or new management sometimes, or sometimes English isn't the native language and it's hard to communicate with people. Not a lot, but a few.
Do you want to, for those that are not water people, do you want to explain the principle and purpose of a backflow
Well,
device?
backflow is a little more than a check valve. It's a check valve style device that has test ports included on it. The check valves can fail, so can backflow preventers. That's the reason for a test once a year. The best backflow prevention is an air gap situation, where it's like your kitchen sink has a faucet above the flood level of the sink. That's an air gap. There's no way sink water can get up in your faucet and backflow. With air gap, they're very expensive to put in on a large scale, and they're the easiest ones to overwrite. You put a hose on that sink spigot and drop the hose downward into a bucket of water or something, and then now you've overwritten that. There's a double check valve. Those are acceptable. They have test ports on those spring-loaded check valves. So if the first check valve fails, the second one hopefully catches it. This is for back pressure or back siphonage. If anything in the business creates higher pressure than we're supplying, they could conceivably or theoretically push water back into the system. Then there's the better device than that, is the reduced pressure zone principal backflow preventer, which is a double check valve with a center port between the two check valves, that if for some reason that center port sees higher pressure than the city is providing, it will exhaust that pressure to the atmosphere. Those have to be plumbed to a drain, installed above a floodplain of a facility. And then there's a few other minor ones for lawn irrigation and things of that nature too. But the intent is to guard against back pressure or back siphonage in the event we might lose pressure, so nothing comes from the city or the premise and goes backwards. You're vulnerable with people that have CO2 tanks on their soda fountain machines. Sometimes those go bad. The check valve in those, sometimes the CO2 lines energize the internal plumbing. Things happen. Fortunately, it didn't get into the city system, but it wreaked havoc internal in the small restaurant that happened.
So in essence, we are protecting our water system by having this in place so we don't pull any contaminants from any
Right.
commercial account back into our water supply system, is what this device
That's
does.
the idea behind it. Yep.
Sort of simplify it. So as you can tell, there's more to it than that simplified explanation.
So we're just needing an incentive for people to follow through.
Well, yeah.
And it's
And
for,
to update the ordinance, I mean, it was 26 years old, for goodness sakes, and there's things that changed since then. Plumbing
Little bit.
code has helped tremendously also, in just the way they.
Is the equipment improved much, the check valves you're talking about, are those changed much over the years?
Improved, updated,
Yeah,
new
they-
devices. and
I assume
stuff.
that's something that it's customer owned, so it'd be, what, probably at the meter on the customer side?
Pardon me?
I say that if that's something, a piece of equipment the customer owns, then it'd be at the meter on the customer side? Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah, you come in, hopefully it's meter, then backflow preventer, and kind of do what you want after that. There's 375 of them out there we already police and monitor.
How many more are there that we need?
Well, that's hard to say, Karen, to a degree. You know, a widespread, do you want to knock on everybody's door and put one at all 4,000 service connections? You probably could.
and I know a lot of the plumbers are aware
Right.
that these aren't being checked.
Well,
So I'm thinking, like a guy I help, when we find them, we like to say something. It's for your own safety. I mean,
and
be
they
a
should.
fool not
As a
to.
plumber, they should.
yes. So I think as you're gonna get a lot of these plumbers that are gonna get certified to check these backflows. Sooner or later, you're gonna notice it because they're gonna be in your house sooner or later.
And realize ideally that the teeth that's in this resolution is not to penalize that owner of that business. It also helps encourage those contractors who test to get these things scheduled. Because, if I own a restaurant and I call you to get this done, I'm sort of at your leisure to get it scheduled with the utility and get some things in
Right.
place so I get my test results back. So it really puts that out there that, you know what, I'm going to get fined
Right.
if I don't have some kind of response here, so get on it.
Right.
But we didn't have that teeth that we needed to really get this going. And Derek tracks this in a database. I mean, Derek's put together a database that monitors this, that produces a little report every month that says, follow up on this one's been tested, you have this many coming at you. I know Derek is excited about getting this in place because he's really trying to revamp that system, and Norm's basically gave him the reins and said, make it better, go after it.
And you look at degree of hazard too. What's the business doing? what's going on beyond the walls of the business. You know, obviously chemical factories and mortuaries and things of that nature, you definitely want to make sure you got protection there. Or if they're using compressed air that's sometimes mixed with the plumbing system for air purge of water-cooled presses and things like that.
And Norman Derrick went to the council meeting last night and presented, and council did pass as an ordinance. So this is in the codified, well, should be in the codified ordinances. So,
I so move.
Second.
Al,
Yes.
Dick,
Yes.
Bonnie,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Karen.
Yes.
Okay, number 6, a resolution to approve revisions to the Communications Department general rules and regulations and corresponding rate exhibit addendum and declaring an emergency.
okay, this would be resolution number 9, 2015. It's a resolution to approve the revisions to the Bryan Communications Department general rules and regulations and corresponding exhibit addendum as herein attached and to declare an emergency. So let me hit a couple things here. So I expect this to be a little longer conversation. So unfortunately, and I'm going to thank Karen because she went through what was provided to her and really did some really good markups for us. Unfortunately, I got it sort of at a later hour and I couldn't get all of them in there, but we tried to grab the ones that didn't change the actual meaning behind of the rules and regs and what we were trying to do. So the intent of the rule was this, and we try to keep that intent in place. But we did provide you with 2 amended sheets. One would have been under the scope. That one was our city internet site that we call out in the rules was wrong on our last one. So we just brought it to the cityofbryan.net, which is us. So that was a change. And then we also brought in under premium services that we called out as special packages because throughout this agreement, this rules and regs, we bounce back and forth between calling it premium services and special packages. So we just tied that in, so at least those tied together so that person that's looking at the definitions understands what we're talking about, okay? So I wanted to call those out right away. And again, I want to thank Karen. I apologize for not getting into the others that that you made recommendations. We tried to do the best on that.
I wish I would have turned it in sooner. I'm sorry, I just had some
Oh,
things that delayed me on that end of
it was the 9th hour and I was going, oh, panic mode, so we did the best we could.
it. No, it could have been a moot point too. Could have handled it next time as well.
Okay, so what we have, the resolution in front of you covers the proposed changes and additions to the rules and regs and not the discussed rate increase, okay? So what's in front of you is the actual, the rules and regs as they stand, what we're recommending with the old rate schedule in there, okay? So if you would, and when you guys looked at your packet, you would have had, still the basic cable at $810.75, extended basic at $56.90. That's what you would be passing as an all-inclusive, okay? The changes that are in this, and I'm just going to call out several of them that I consider larger scale changes. The other ones are more editorial, where we're bringing some sentences together and cleaning up some spelling errors, let's say, or some grammatical errors. I mean, just a lot of that stuff going on in there. So some of the changes I wanted to point out, but it's not limited to just these. The removal of the 12-month pay for 14-month service. That's been in place as a incentive type package since we kicked the system off back in 1999. It probably should have been addressed a long time ago. Promotion type things phase out. This never phased out. We do have some customers that use it. I'm not going to say we don't. Part of the removal of special equipment fees are also based on that 12 for 14, which is your internet prepay and what we charge on a monthly fee based on that prepay. Those customers are typically, I'll give you an example, there's about 125 of those customers out of the 1,700 plus that we have. Those customers, Lori's team down at the city side sends a mailer out to them, a note 2 months prior to the expiration of their special agreement, okay? That way they are notified that, hey, as long as this is in place, you can pay in 2 months for the next 12 and get this. So Lori's team and I sat down and Lou, and they tailored a letter that Lori's group's still gonna send out. So as each individual customer of the 125 that use this service are timing out 2 months prior, they'll get this letter to let them know that the rules and regs, if approved as they are, okay, has been changed and we no longer offer that special promotional package anymore. So they will be notified as they time out. You know, we discussed sending out a mass mailer on it. Didn't make sense, it just would have caused confusion. And Lori's staff down there has a process in place where they do it, they're comfortable with it. I elected, you know what, that they're gonna handle that part of that for us. So those are two of the major changes. You'll see the reflection or the increases of internet speeds. You know, that's called out. We used to have just an Exhibit A, we broke out Exhibit A through Exhibit F because we wanted to break out the internet stuff by itself. So you have the residential and you have the commercial and you have the fiber stuff by themselves. Those fees are what they are. We're not changing those. But the speeds in there, if you remember, Joe over the last year has increased those speeds. The old rules and regs talked about slower speeds. We wanted to reflect, you know, what we can offer, where we're at. Our max, here's where we're at. Okay, so that's called out. We also, there's things in like the change of the initial installation number of outlets. You know, it used to be we'd walk in and install 4 outlets. We are on a reduced staff size right now, and we have been trying to keep this thing, you know, going strong and pay our bills and make it better. We can't spend hours upon hours with an individual at a house putting 4 outlets in. The industry doesn't do that. You know, the industry gives you the 1 outlet as part of the installation package, and any outlet thereafter is assessed a fee. Those fees are broke out. They didn't change. You know, there's still 40 for the first, 30 for those after. The first one's free, second's 40, then thereafter is 30, okay? So I called that out. I want to make sure everybody understands that. Again, I wanted to talk about the restructuring of Exhibit A into Exhibits A through F. Exhibit A still is the same cable rates, not the recommended changes yet. F, all the ones to F break out separately. The point behind that is if we have to change, let's say, the dark fiber rate of the monthly fee, we can just come to you and pull out that Exhibit H or F or whatever it is and just deal with that. When they were all under A, you're taking that whole block, and I sent it to Lori and Ron as this big package, I gotta go through all of it. Doesn't make sense. We gotta make it a little easier. And it mirrors the other departments. It really does. When it calls out rate schedules for water and electric, those are specifically here. Rules and regs sit here, your rates sit here, okay? So the passage will be inclusive of the rules and regs, and that encompasses all the old rates. The resolution will be passed as an emergency, which means it takes effect right away. Why did I want the emergency? Because we need to get a handle on all these extra fees, as in these specialties that we had going on, these special services, because it gets Lori and her group time to start dealing with them right away. If we don't, then we have a bunch more coming in, and we're always fighting it until that 30-day window, you know, times out and it becomes in effect. So we chose to put it in effect right away, get on top of this right away, to try to limit some of the headache behind it, as in the mass exodus or the mass entry into this. And then Lou will provide a letter to our customers to explain that the promotion has gone away, as well as any other letters that need to be mailed out, we will do on our end that are not inside of that. So, with that, I will take open conversation on it. Trust me, I'm sure we can go through this 5 more times and find a bunch more potential errors. We've had a lot of eyes look at it, a lot of people read through it, we've done a lot of changes. You realize you're dealing with a document that really, other than the rates, hasn't been touched since like 1999. Okay, so would I ever say I'd want to do this again? No. There's a ton of work involved in this. I know Lori's staff has poured over it, Rhonda's poured over it. I mean, we buried, unfortunately, poor Rhonda, we buried her one week with a bunch of documents and said, oh, by the way, can you look at these? As well as half a dozen staff members here having meetings time and time again to cover different aspects of this. I mean, I got a folder in my office this thick of all the red line versions, to the point where I'm about ready to throw some of them away because they're confusing me. So I'm open for conversation on this. Again, this is not the recommendation for the rate increase yet. That's coming real soon here if this passes.
Well, it sounds to me like this is way overdue. should have done this.
Yeah, that's,
Long time ago.
what I was gonna say. It sounds to me like a lot of it's just promotions they came up with when they first started the system to help get things going. Usually promotions like that, I don't know, last, what, a year or two maybe, if you're lucky, and then they go away. So it's probably time, and it's a big step, I think, in keeping our system efficient.
It'll definitely simplify things if we ever need to, like you said, go to Exhibit A. Boom.
Yeah.
We don't have to go through A through F, modify and change.
I'll entertain a motion then.
So moved.
Second.
Dick,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Bonnie,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Al.
Yes.
Okay, number 7, a resolution to approve revisions to the Bryan Communications Department rate addendums, Exhibit A, cable television rate schedule.
Okay, this will be resolution number 10, 2015. It's a resolution to approve the revisions to the Bryan Communication Department's rate addendum, Exhibit A, cable television rate schedule as herein attached. So, we approved the first part of this as it stands, and I said we would very soon jump into the second part. Well, that soon is here, okay? We did this with purpose because we had two things really we were working on: a rate structured problem that we need to get rates taken care of, and a rules and regs problem. Unfortunately, you can't shove them both together and pass this. Working with Ron and Lori, we felt this is best pulling them apart, you know. So what we have in front of us is the recommendations of those rate increases that we've been talking about for the last 2 months or so, okay? So let me recover this again with you. So, this resolution that's on the table right now for you guys to either approve or whatnot is only encompasses the Exhibit A section of what we just passed as a cable television rate schedule. Doesn't reflect anything else, okay? So it's just the rates themselves. The existing rates are, and I'll go through this, basic cable is $18.75, extended basic is $56.90, and digital cable is $10.55. What we're proposing under this resolution would be the new rate of $21.65 for basic cable, $60.25 for extended basic, and digital cable will be $11. There are a couple other things I need to point out to you guys, and because we have some other rates that are tied to that extended basic, such as multiple dwelling units, healthcare facilities, hotels and motels. I want to bring out that those will go up too. So a multi-dwelling unit, the old rate would have been $28.45. They're going to be at $30.15. Okay, so basically it's about half of what the extended digital or extended basic package is. Healthcare facilities, we had a rate of $56.90. They will go to $60.25. It's the same as the extended basic rate. And then the hotels and the motels, $56.90 was the old, again, $60.25 is the new, which is exactly the extended basic rate as it stands. If this is approved, it will affect those bills rendered on or after April 20th. You know, FCC says we have to give 30-day notification, plus working with Pat and Lori, trying to insert this increase into the billing cycle under cycle 1, which is where we start out at, falls in about that time of the month, plus any other bill inserts that are going on at that time, so we're really working in with Lori. What we chose to do on this particular item is we're going to send a letter out to all of our customers if this is approved tonight. That way we don't have Lori trying to do a bill insert. We're going to take care of that on our end, because there's some other things that she's working on to put in the bill for themselves, okay? So every one of our customers that are currently on our books will get a letter. I guess I want to point out, this is never easy. These are just programming increases, okay? I know I had a couple board members call and ask, and I appreciate the questions. Hey, what's the profit margin built into that? Is there any extra? How did you guys come up with this number? These are nothing more than programming fee increases. These do not include any kind of operational needs. Outside of that, they don't include any capital projects, they don't include payroll, they don't include vehicle maintenance. I mean, this is strictly what we have to charge to be even Steven on those channels, okay? So if you're looking at a nutshell, how we do business today, and you guys know we run very tight in that budget with that department. Joe monitors that with a microscope. It doesn't change. There's no extra dollars, so there's a little breathing room. It is still being tightly monitored to make sure that bills are paid, and we're doing what we can for our customers. That makes it right, okay? I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that we may lose a couple customers, we might. But my goal is to keep those customers, that if they're thinking about leaving because of, you own the system, it's yours, and our serviceability, you know, we're a phone call away. And that's 24/7, we're a phone call away. I don't necessarily think you're gonna have that with any kind of competitor that we may have in the area. Like I said, we all know those competitors, I'm not gonna name them. But again, as I noted in my summary to you guys, I would take open discussion on this. I want the community to know that there's been a lot of thought put in this. This is not just, oh, we need this dollars, let's throw it out there and do it. There's been a lot of back and forth conversation, running the numbers, trying to figure out what is the right number that we cover our ends.
Well, I was one of the board members that called you about this because I wanted to know was our profit margin, but now I realize all we're doing is passing on costs. What's costing us is going on to the consumer, and our profit will be just about, if we retain everybody, and be the same as before.
And it's basically the
We're
program.
passing the cost on just like at a grocery
Programming.
store. Milk goes up, you pay the price.
But we are still absorbing capital improvements,
Oh, yeah.
all that stuff. This is just programming costs that got passed on.
Correct.
And they have been passed on before, and we never raised. It just got to this point where we had to.
Over the last couple of years, I would say that those programming increases can no longer be absorbed like we used to in the past to stay competitive and try to do, you know, offer a really quality product. You're at the point now where the face of the industry is changing so quickly. I mean, you know, we'll get into this next section, we'll talk more about that later tonight, but that we have to pass some of this on. I mean, we can't carry this on the books on ourselves. The fund balance can't handle it. I mean, yeah, it may handle it for a year, but thereafter, you're reducing your operation, you're reducing what you have available to operate and repair and do the things that, you know, our citizens expect us to do.
I think it's really unfortunate. I mean, nobody wants to raise rates, but it would be bad business not to. We have to pass the cost through.
And another thing I will say, there is a competitor who has a pretty low price for their basic. But all I ask people to do is to read that very bottom line that you can barely read. Get your microscope out there.
Yeah.
There's some bewares in there, so just be aware of that.
Well, a lot of those prices you see too, they're promotions, just like we talked about, some of the things we dealt with tonight. And they'll throw them at you to get you to sign up, and then before you know it, they go away and you're right back in the
I'll be
same
the first
boat.
one to let you know that I changed quite a while ago when I got to Shazoo. That's why I came back. So,
Joe's been looking at this for months. We've talked about it in our committee meetings on our monthly Thursday committee meeting, and we have analyzed everything we can. So it's not something that's come up unexpectedly, it's something we've been working very hard to try to avoid, but we haven't been able to.
And he's also done an outstanding job of negotiating with the programmers.
Yeah.
So, because they wanted them to be larger increases.
And just by the sheer fact of the way the utility runs the communications, I mean, it's the nature of the beast that you don't build a lot of fluff into it to give yourself room to absorb cost to much of an extent.
Have you heard any feedback from the changes that have been made to try and avoid any price increase? like we had to get rid of the Fort Wayne channels, but you added some other channels in place of them, and some of those are real interesting. Have you had any feedback from customers?
No, when we first did it, when we first getting ready to do it, as a matter of fact, I probably had 4 or 5 calls, and a couple of them was just telling me they was all for dropping the stations, I don't want to pay the extra for them. I had 2 or 3 folks that said that they would be willing to pay the extra for it, and they really liked them, and then I explained it. I said, well, the issue is I have to pass it along to every customer and the utility if we did that, and everybody's bill would basically go up $4 more for those 2 stations than it already is. And then they understood. I haven't had any really upset folks or anything like that. And the programming we put on, Karen, is really good. I think a lot of people really like that, so.
Well, I make a motion, we move ahead.
Second?
Al,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Bonnie,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Dick.
Yes.
Number 8 then is a request to make the communication loan payment.
Okay, now I want to have some people go, this was a terrible time for you to make a loan payment back to the electric department right after you just raised the rates. I'm already anticipating that coming, but there's some reason behind this. Joe and I did sit down and talk, and typically we do not do this loan payment until later in the 4th quarter of the year, or the late 3rd quarter of the year. But we, quite honestly, after doing this rate increase, got talking, this note payment is an obligation that's not going to go away until it's paid off. It's something that has to happen. Currently, where we sit with our fund balance is not at such a level that it's extremely large or extremely small, but it's right where we expected it to be so we can make this payment. And this payment was built into the budget this year to make, okay? So when I read these numbers to you guys and ask you to make a motion on it, realize it was built into the budget. So that whole picture on how that budget works, this was put in there. But what we really want to do is, after we make this payment early, which is going to be tonight, we really want to sit and keep an eye on that fund balance, because as I said before, through attrition, we probably will lose a couple customers. But we're hoping by fall, we get some of those other customers back. When they really see that we mean what we're saying and try to keep this thing, a very effective system. But we don't want skewed numbers at the end of the year with a fund balance that drops on us and then try to make a payment and make it worse. I'm one of those guys, I want to see it happen, I want to see it right in my face. I want to be able to monitor it for the next six months. And Joe agreed with me on this. So what I have, I'm going to ask for a motion on, and these are no different than the numbers we had last year, other than they're going to sound rather large based on what we just did, okay? So I'm going to ask you guys to make a motion to make this payment, and part of how this payment's going to play out. You're going to have a principal payment of $104,000. That's what's on the promissory note that the board signed back in 1999 or prior to it, okay? So we're going to do that. And then 2-3 years ago, or it's been over 2 years now, we agreed to make extra principal payments. Okay, we're going to stay with that. And the extra principal payment will be $246,000. The interest payment of $128.93 will also be on top of that. Okay, and those interest numbers are based on what Lori provides me at the end of the year to earmark for the following year's budget. So that number was preset last year, okay? So your total payment to the electric department is $350,128.93. That money is in the budget, okay? It's not like we're robbing Peter to pay Paul. We already have that allocated in the budget. The positive, the very, very, very big positive, when this payment is made, the last and final payment will be in front of us. And that will be $290,642, and that note is paid for. Okay, so this board has effectively paid off a rather large note about 2 years early, okay, and over the last 3 years. So we've been pretty aggressive.
So we should see it paid off by 2016.
That's my goal. And I'll be honest, here, I'll tip my cards to you as a card player. Depending on if the fund balance and our budget can handle it at the end of the year. I would like to take whatever residual we have, maybe we didn't do a capital project, and Joe has money earmarked for capital if need to be done, and make another payment at the end of the year to help bring this down, and maybe split it over this year's budget and next year's budget. What it does for next year, it frees up dollars. So yes, I'm spending it this year, but it really gives me a better picture on where I need to be next year. And honestly, that need to be part is, there's some capital expenses that need to happen.
No.
There's some potential staffing issues that need to be addressed. I mean, we reduce staff to make this happen. There's still a need for an installer, someone to give us a help. I'll tell you right now, we have a service tech that covers electric, water, and communications helping do work. We've had a three-phase meter guy, which is Jay Smith, help do communications disconnects. There's just a lot of work. We have not dropped off on our serviceability to our customers. We may have opened up our install times, where we used to be 2-3 days, we get you installed, now we're a week out. But those other things, we've used every staff member here that we have that has that kind of experience to free up the time for the 2 individuals in that department and know the business. We can't continue on that way. It doesn't work. But we need to get this taken care of first. The loan lease that's out there, that's an operational expense, that's a reoccurring every year expense. It's gonna get, it is what it is. But this is the one I want off the books. I want off the books for Lori, I wanna get it taken care of, that Rhonda's okay with it then, and we can feel good about ourselves. But this thing is done and this department's on its own 2 feet now.
I think it's an extremely smart move.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I appreciate that it's being paid off, and I know Joe's really, really watching his money. So I'd like to see it get, I know that's a goal for you.
But if you look at the interest on this, no offense, the cost of money is cheap right now.
Oh, yeah.
So you're foolish not to pay it off.
Yes.
I mean, those interest rates start creeping above where they're at, you get a 1, 2, 3, that number jumps rather fast. So,
I'll make a motion that we pay that.
I'll
loan.
second.
Dick,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Bonnie,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Karen.
Yes.
no, it's just a motion.
Okay, all right. Okay, number 9 then, affect semi-monthly disbursements.
I'll make a motion, we pay the bills.
Second.
Jim,
Yes.
Dick,
Yes.
Bonnie,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Al.
And number 10, comments from BPA and staff.
Just a couple things. Solar production last month was a little down, about 4,000 kilowatt hours lower than what we anticipated. But again, from some of the things I've been reading, this is one of the coldest and snowiest, if that's even a great word to use, February's on record. So I'm pretty happy with the production we have compared to what we've been going through. And I don't know how many people have followed the FCC recently. And the FCC recently had a vote 3-2 to basically approve net neutrality. How does that affect us? We don't know yet. How does it hurt us? We don't know yet. Quite honestly, there's going to be a flurry of lawsuits. That's usually how it goes. The problem you'll run into, and I'll let Rhonda discuss, depending on how they move forward with some of these suits and how the Supreme Court, because I believe this next section is going to the Supreme Court, rules, they could be allowing the lawsuits to happen as they enforce new rules because of net neutrality. In essence, the net neutrality says that you can't throttle Group A down to benefit Group B. Everybody's neutral on the same playing field. So your Netflix, your Amazon Primes, and anybody else that streams, they all have to be considered the same for bandwidth and streaming and these other things. Realize we're a small operator. We have X amount of bandwidth space or capacity. So that potential to hurt us there is very real. But it also opens the door, there's some positive things that I think are positive, that it calls out the type of provider we are as potentially a utility, okay? If that funnels all the way down to the state of Ohio, that changes how we're looked at under the Fair Cable Law. So but that's years down the road. A lot of lawsuits have to happen before it gets to us. But I would venture to say, I would encourage, if you guys have time, look it up, read on it. There's a lot of stuff coming out daily on it, as well as that there's still that same movement from people moving to more streaming than the cable TV side. I mean, Joe's brought me some good information the last week or two since our last conversation of some of the larger players in the country are seeing that change, but at a larger rate. So, other than that, appreciate tonight. I know this was difficult. A lot of this stuff that we covered tonight was some difficult stuff. You guys have answered a lot of phone calls. I do want to apologize. Joe and I try to prep ourselves, really prep ourselves and anticipate any kind of questions that may come up to give those answers to the community. And at times I realize and I apologize that we step on your guys' toes before you can answer the questions. That's not what we're trying to do. I know I've had a couple board members go, hey, I had a person ask, and we already covered that question and 10 other ones. Please understand, if we do that, slow us down. I mean, Joe and I prep all week on this. We want to have your answers. We want to make sure the public knows what we're doing. So I apologize if we do that to you guys. Other than that, I have nothing else.
Okay, Rhonda?
No, ma'am.
Lori?
No, ma'am.
Anyone out there? Okay, Al? Dick?
I just like Joe, I had 3 calls over some tiling issues and things, but all 3 of those people, plus I ran into one at the clerk's treasurer's office, highly commended both your installers. I mean, they just wanted to tell me how great they were, so just pass that along.
Sure will. Thanks.
Great.
Made me feel good.
Karen?
Nothing.
Jim?
No,
Well, so I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss.
Take a break first,
I'll take a
Okay, we'll take a recess. We'll take a recess.
right? And Max, there'll be no action.
Good deal. Did number 3 get approved?
Hang on a
Yes.
minute, yeah.
Already waiting.
Yeah, I did. I did.
Go.
Hey, Jackie. Is Joe gonna get the camera?